Disclaimer. In creating this video, we aim to present information about the inhumane and brutal actions of Mexican cartel members in the most gentle way possible, omitting detailed descriptions of these horrific crimes. Who could have imagined just 10 years ago that a military operation to curb and possibly dismantle the activities of Mexican drug cartels would be seriously discussed within the administration of the U.S. president? Although this idea has recently taken a backseat, I'm almost certain the discussion will resurface in the future, and American Marines might find themselves engaged in urban combat somewhere in the suburbs of Ciudad Juarez. If you enjoy this video, please support us by subscribing and liking it. This is because the war on cartels, which was so pompously announced from numerous government platforms in Mexico over a decade and a half ago, has been a catastrophic failure for the hopelessly corrupt Mexican government, despite a few localized successes. The government is losing because it faces entire armies, well-trained and equipped, staffed with ruthless and fanatical cartel soldiers. In these cartel armies, every soldier knows that loyalty, bravery, and brutality toward enemies will be richly rewarded and celebrated. If a soldier is killed, their family will be provided for. Their children might receive an education, and their elderly mother might receive the necessary surgery. However, woe to those who decide to betray or deceive the cartel. Such individuals face the most horrific fate. Unfortunately, the victims of cartel activities and the gangs associated with them are often ordinary, uninvolved Mexican citizens. The vortex of violence cripples the lives of thousands of families every year, leaving them devastated as their loved ones are killed, sometimes with savage cruelty. Now, let us turn to the facts about these dramatic events that have taken place and continue to unfold in this undeclared war.
The top hitman of the Barrio Azteca gang.
During the proceedings, where Arturo Gallegos Castrillon was the main defendant, the lead witness was the hitman Jesus Ernesto Chavez Castillo, a member of the gang. He admitted that he stopped counting his victims after reaching 800. The Barrio Azteca gang provided its killers to the Juarez cartel, one of Mexico's most violent drug cartels. In court, Chavez stated that he and his associates maintained a quota of 8 murders daily to instill fear among police officers, officials, and society at large. According to him, he committed 800 murders in Ciudad Juarez between January and August of 2009. Chavez revealed that it was his 4 years of work for Castrillon that gave Ciudad Juarez its infamous reputation as the world's murder capital. Those attending the trial were shocked not only by the number of people killed by one man, but also by the brutality of the murders. Chavez told the jury that he often decapitated or dismembered his victims to impress his boss. According to the killer, whose words were cited by the Daily Mail, the goal of every murder was to make it as brutal as possible to attract maximum attention. Chavez described to the horrified court members how his gang underwent training from the in-house killers of the Los Zetas cartel. For example, Castrillon sent 2 teams of assassins to the Mexican city of Torreon to train with members of Los Zetas, who taught them, among other things, how to kill people traveling in cars. The Barrio Azteca gang originated in a prison in El Paso, Texas, in 1986. It quickly became one of the largest criminal organizations in the U.S. It is estimated that about 3,000 members operated across the states of New Mexico, Texas, and Massachusetts, while at least 5,000 were active in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. Many gang members had dual citizenship, allowing them to easily cross the U.S.-Mexico border. Chavez admitted to overseeing squads responsible for the murders of over 2,000 people in the bloody war between the Carrillo Fuentes organization, associated with Barrio Azteca, and Joaquin Guzman's gang, which worked for the Sinaloa cartel. Chavez was arrested in July 2010 after being linked to the murder of 13 people at the Villas de Salvarcar in Ciudad Juarez. In January 2010, students gathered for a party at the villa were gunned down. A monster in human form, Chavez grinned as he recounted the final moments of the unfortunate victims. One can only hope that eternal torment awaits him in the afterlife.
The tragedy and revenge of Miriam.
San Fernando, a city with a population of 60,000 in the Mexican state of Tamaulipas, is located 2 hours from the U.S. border. The city lies within the zone of influence of Los Zetas, one of Mexico's largest drug cartels. Even today, numerous kidnappings and murders occur there. San Fernando became widely known in Mexico in 2010 when a mass grave containing the bodies of 72 Central American migrants, murdered by Los Zetas members, was discovered there. Miriam Rodriguez owned a small cowboy clothing shop in San Fernando, a town in Tamaulipas, Mexico. She had separated from her husband and lived with her youngest daughter, Karen. Miriam also had a daughter named Azalea and a son, Luis. On January 23, 2014, 20-year-old Karen was kidnapped by members of the Los Zetas cartel. Another victim of the kidnapping, a mechanic, was taken by chance. The kidnappers demanded a ransom from Miriam. She paid it by taking out a bank loan, but Karen never returned. Miriam managed to meet with one of the members of Los Zetas, who assured her the cartel didn't know where her daughter was but offered to help for $2,000. Miriam paid again. A week later, the cartel members stopped answering her calls. Then, other people claiming to be the kidnappers contacted her, demanding an additional $500. Miriam paid for the third time, but they also disappeared. At 54 years old, Miriam came to the devastating realization that her daughter was dead. She vowed to find Karen's killers and bring them to justice at any cost. This became the purpose of her life. Her family warned her that this pursuit would likely result in her death. Miriam responded fearlessly, saying, "I died the day my daughter was killed." While searching for her daughter's kidnappers, Miriam also led a community of parents in San Fernando whose children were missing. The group included around 600 families. In March 2017, several dozen prisoners, including one of Karen's kidnappers, escaped from a prison in Ciudad Victoria. Miriam requested protection, and the police promised to patrol her home and workplace 3 times a day. Her family felt this was insufficient, but Miriam continued her hunt for her daughter's abductors. Over 3 years, she tracked down and helped capture 9 people. Witnesses testified that the grieving mother poured all her resources and emotional energy into this quest. On May 10, 2017, Mother's Day in Mexico, Miriam was returning home late in the evening. As she walked from her car to her house, a white pickup truck pulled up and she was shot 13 times. Miriam died on the way to the hospital. Police killed one of the gunmen, and 2 others received prison sentences of 10 and 15 years. However, those who ordered Miriam's murder remain unidentified. Her son Luis has since taken up her mission to find them. A month after Miriam's death, police arrested another suspect in Karen's abduction based on the evidence Miriam had collected. This woman had tortured and beaten Karen after the kidnapping. She became the 10th person Miriam had identified. By mid-2020, over 73,000 people were reported missing in Mexico. About 98% of these disappearances occurred after 2006 when the Mexican government declared its war on drugs. This sparked a surge in violence, as dismantling cartel leaders led to power struggles and the fragmentation of cartels into smaller, more ruthless gangs. These groups often funded their operations through kidnappings for ransom.
The assassinations of politicians.
On July 1, 2018, Mexico held general elections to vote for a president, senators, members of Congress, and thousands of regional and municipal officials. During the campaign, which began in September 2017, over 150 politicians were murdered. Throughout the spring of 2018, reports of killings came almost daily. Among the victims, 48 were candidates or potential candidates. On June 21st, Fernando Angeles Juarez, a candidate for mayor of Ocampo, was assassinated. Days later, 27 local police officers were arrested for obstructing federal agents attempting to detain their chief, who was suspected of involvement in the murder and ties to cartels. One of the most notable victims was Fernando Purin, a congressional candidate who was shot in the head on June 8, 2018. shortly after participating in a public debate in the state of Coahuila. As Purin posed for photos with supporters, an assailant approached him from behind and executed him. Purin was the 112th politician killed during the campaign. Much of the violence was concentrated at the local level and tied to cartel activities. The government's crackdown on large criminal organizations led to the rise of smaller, more fragmented groups, which often resorted to eliminating politicians they couldn't coerce or negotiate with.
Illegal immigration, cartel slaves.
Another lucrative source of income for Mexican drug cartels is illegal migration. Mexico serves as a transit hub for migrants from Central America attempting to reach the U.S. Every year, tens of thousands of people, primarily young individuals from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, risk the journey in search of a better life. To navigate the route, many migrants turn to smugglers affiliated with cartels. These ruthless operators not only charge exorbitant fees, but often betray their clients. Migrants are sold to cartels at the border, where they are exploited as forced labor, held for ransom, or coerced into joining the cartels. Kidnappings of migrants are common, with Los Zetas being particularly notorious. In 2010, the cartel intercepted a large group of migrants and gave them an ultimatum: join the cartel or die. When they refused, all 72 were executed. In recent years, over 120,000 refugees have disappeared in Mexico. Many of their remains have been discovered in mass graves. To date, 40,000 unidentified bodies of migrants from Central America have been found. Most mass graves are located along migrant routes, particularly in the states of Tabasco, Veracruz, and Chiapas.
Death on the beach.
In recent years, events that once seemed unimaginable have become a grim reality. Paradise-like resorts such as Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and Tulum have turned into zones of intense violence as cartels wage brutal battles for power and territory. These cities, immensely popular with tourists from the US and Europe, have become hotspots for crimes involving drug cartels. Several times, rival executions have taken place in full view of terrified tourists, with bystanders caught in the crossfire. In the Mexican state of Quintana Roo, home to these popular vacation spots, there were a shocking 633 murders last year, more than the entire United Kingdom in the same period. Recently, four gunmen shot and killed a man near a luxury five-star resort in Cancun. The victim, identified only as a 30-year-old Mexican citizen, was shot dead on the beach near the Riu Hotel on the morning of October 3rd. After firing multiple shots, two of the assailants fled on rented jet skis, while the other two escaped on foot. Among those killed by cartels in Mexico are foreign nationals, including 54-year-old British businessman Chris Cleave. He was shot dead in front of his 14-year-old daughter Chloe while leaving a gated community in Playa del Carmen, where he lived. Originally from Truro, Cornwall, Cleave had received death threats before his murder, allegedly for opposing extortion attempts by a cartel. Two men, aged 18 and 30, fled the scene but were later arrested. Cleave's business partner, 57-year-old Vitaly Fagin, was murdered in a similar fashion in 2021 while driving home. The major players in these battles, Sinaloa, Gulf, and Jalisco New Generation cartels, along with the smaller Grupo Regional cartel, are fiercely competing for control of revenue streams and influence in the region. Innocent children have also fallen victim to the violence. In July 2024, a 12-year-old boy was shot and killed when armed men on jet skis opened fire on rival drug dealers on a Cancun beach. While tourists are not usually targeted by cartels, they often become collateral damage in the bloody feuds between rival gangs. Innocent lives are increasingly being lost on the pristine white sands of these idyllic coastal destinations.
A cartel lays siege to an entire city. The police are helpless.
In a dramatic event, Mexico's national police arrested Ovidio Guzman Lopez, one of the sons of the infamous drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, in the city of Culiacan, Sinaloa. However, Guzman Jr. was released almost immediately after the cartel surrounded the police and effectively laid siege to the city. On October 17th, during a military patrol, members of Mexico's National Guard were ambushed by cartel members entrenched in a house in Culiacan. Upon raiding the house, police arrested Guzman Lopez, one of El Chapo's 4 children from his second marriage. Though El Chapo had 6 children in total, all potential heirs to his sprawling empire. In 2018, the United States indicted Guzman Jr. on charges of smuggling cocaine and methamphetamine, issuing a warrant for his arrest. However, the 30 National Guard officers who detained him were quickly surrounded by superior cartel forces. The officers decided to withdraw without their detainee to protect their own lives and restore order to the city, which had been plunged into chaos as cartel members erected blockades and engaged in intense gunfights. Residents posted photos and videos on social media showing shootouts, trucks equipped with heavy machine guns, and masked men in military-grade gear patrolling the city. Reinforcements, including the Mexican army and heavily armored police units, were deployed to Culiacan. Cristobal Castañeda, Sinaloa's public safety secretary, reported that alongside the gunfights and barricades, the conflict was marked by a mass jailbreak of 20 to 30 prisoners. "We urge people to stay off the streets until control is restored," he said. Meanwhile, the Guzman family lawyer triumphantly told the Associated Press that Ovidio is alive and free. El Chapo, whose Sinaloa cartel was once considered the most powerful drug syndicate in the world, was sentenced to life imprisonment by a U.S. federal court in July 2019. Yet, even behind bars, his influence over the cartel remains strong. In Mexico and across Central America, political assassinations and the killings of journalists investigating cartel activities have become commonplace. In 2017, Mexico was the most dangerous country in the world for journalists, second only to Syria. That year, 11 media workers were killed by criminal groups. In addition to eroding state institutions, extreme poverty, and a lack of job opportunities play significant roles in creating an environment where cartels thrive. For many impoverished individuals, involvement in the drug trade offers a chance at a seemingly glamorous and independent life, albeit often a short-lived one. Unsurprisingly, most cartel leaders in Central America come from the lower classes. Stories of their opulent mansions, luxury cars, and beautiful women fuel young men's aspirations to join the world of crime and violence. The socioeconomic structure in Latin American countries, where 10% of the population controls most of the wealth while the rest live in abject poverty or near destitution, pushes desperate young people into the ranks of these criminal organizations.
There is probably no person in the world who hasn't heard the word mafia. Yet, few truly know how it originated, how it is organized, how it operates, and how it interacts with other, sometimes the most ruthless criminal groups in the world. The word mafia likely comes from Arabic, meaning refuge. Over centuries of fighting foreign invaders, Arabs, Normans, French, and Spanish, the Sicilians established hidden resistance bases in their rugged mountains. Far from towns, roads, and the occupying army, soldiers, desperate and ruthless fighters, who of course did not call themselves mafiosi, found shelter. There, they could rest, bandage their wounds, and, sustained by a piece of goat cheese and stale wheat bread, prepare to kill and be killed. The customs of the time were brutal. As time passed, these poor shepherds built a structure that extended its tentacles across the entire island, from the humble homes of peasants to the palaces of Palermo. Sicilian gangs created a model that was later adopted by criminal organizations worldwide. They became a formidable force in Sicily during the 1800s, and their power and sophistication steadily grew. Cosa Nostra translates from Sicilian as our thing. This was the name of the first mafia, founded by family clans. It is known for its code of honor, the omerta, which demanded absolute loyalty. Informers faced torture and death, and their families were also punished. Even today, mafia members in Sicily are sometimes called upon to resolve business disputes and locate stolen goods. as their services are often seen as more effective than the slow-moving judicial system. However, many despise the mafia's extortion practices, known as protection rackets, where business owners are forced to pay for the protection of their enterprises.